Hey, I'm Ellie Holcomb. This is Drew Holcomb of Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors, and
Yes.
of Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors. And I thought that it would be fun to sort of do an interview with you about your record and about songwriting. And Drew agreed. So
This is a new experiment for us.
it is, yeah. He has not seen any of these questions that I'm about to ask him, and I now have this record. I have the vinyl record here for references to lyrics if I need them, and really mainly song titles because I am terrible at song titles. My own, yours, all of them.
It's a true story.
What's funny is, and what's fun for me is, I know some of the answers to these questions, but really not all, and it's kind of fun to just have a chance to kind of talk with you songwriter to songwriter and hear about your process, your creative process. So what I want to know is when you are setting out to make a new record, there's sort of like a record cycle that happens. It's generally, what would you say? How long is a record cycle?
For me, it's been like 2 years, 2.5. This one was 2.5.
In between
albums.
Albums,
Not
okay.
counting like EPs, like the Good I Wrote EP or Christmas Thing, or like the songs that you and I put out. But like for proper albums, like, Chasing Someday to Good Light to Medicine to Souvenir to Dragons is usually about 2 years, 2.5 years.
2.5 years. So when you are like, what is the timeline for you, and what is the impetus to create again? Was there sort of like a vision or something that you were walking through personally, or is there that sort of like sparks this creative drive?
Yeah.
Or are you kind of like the business of writing and being a writer? Are you sort of like on a timeline? Or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah, I mean, it's been both. I think with Medicine and definitely with Souvenir, they were both sort of written in like short spurts of time.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote most of Souvenir with Rich and Nathan from the band, and we would get together every Monday for like 6 months and write songs, and then I wrote a bunch of other songs by myself and a few that they wrote by themselves as well. But this one was much different for me. I typically don't write at all when I'm touring, and so the Souvenir tour was basically most of a year, starting in early March all the way through Thanksgiving, when we ended the tour with the sort of surprise of getting to go on tour with Willie Nelson. And while the tour ended really well, especially the Willie Nelson part, it started off really tough for me. I was in the hospital that previous December when we were finishing mixing and mastering the record, so I didn't even really participate that much in the mastering and mixing because my head felt like it was going to explode and I was in the hospital. So Nathan and Rich had to do that part because we were on a timeline. We already had a tour booked, and so I always tell myself I don't want to have a timeline, but then you have to book a tour sometimes, and then you end up running into this timeline of like, well, it takes, like 4 months to make vinyl, and so you have to finish it with 4 months advance before the tour, so you have vinyl for the release. And this time I really told Paul, our manager, Paul and Sam, that I wanted to have a month between when the record came out and when the tour started, because I felt like with the Souvenir tour, it came out on a Friday and the tour started like the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And so there wasn't time for people to sort of let those songs kind of live with them, and so it felt like we were introducing the record every night, whereas this one, it's felt like people already have the songs kind of in their heads and they're excited about it. But back to that, sort of got off rabbit trail there, but this record I started writing on the road because I was really sort of hit a dark spot where I was sick. I couldn't really get a lot better. I was on tour, not feeling great, and just had been like on the road mostly all the time for, I don't know how long we've been doing this, since 2004.
Mm-hmm.
So it was 2017, 13 years,
Mm-hmm.
and never really felt like I'd had a break, and that tour was kind of like where I hit a wall.
Mm-hmm.
And so that summer, I started writing. I thought, well, what can I do that's different to kind of like change the pace of it for me? And so I started writing more songs than ever before, and started writing with different people. That's when the collaboration with Johnny Swim and Penny and Sparrow happened. was in that season, and I just wanted to try new things. So I did a lot of co-writing. I wrote, like, for the first time in my life, I scheduled writes. Like, I'll put them on my calendar. I was like, okay, Monday night or Monday, I'm coming here to this room, this yellow couch. I'm gonna write songs. And so, by the time it was time to start making a record, I really had a whole lot more songs. But I knew pretty early on the record was starting to take shape. Really, with the first song that was really kind of one of my early favorites was "Family," and we started playing that on the second half of the Souvenir tour.
Souvenir tour. And what is that like? Because that's what I was going to ask you. Is there a song that you write as you begin to write for another record that clicks for you, that you're like, okay, I'm for sure making another record. This is going on it.
Yeah.
This is sort of what I want it to be about.
Well, every time, like you and we both, I think we both had this in different ways. Like, every time I make a record, I like wonder to myself, oh man, is this my last record?
Totally.
Because it's so much work, so much emotional energy and
soul.
Your soul's exhausted by the end of it. I mean, so let me see it. So, I mean, "Family" was the first song that I knew was like, okay, this is a part of this record. It's like really taking shape. And then probably "See the World" was probably the second one. But I'll never forget the way you make me feel. That was one that I didn't even have finished writing, but I knew it was going to go on the record because I had like the shape of the song and the melody and like the idea, but it took me a while to sort of hammer down the particulars of it. It's funny. I wrote a million songs for this record, but most of them, the ones that made the record, were towards the end of that writing process. So I think just the repetition of writing all the time, I just kept getting. I felt like I was getting better and finding more of a focused thing. So, but "Family" was definitely the song that was like, I'm definitely making a new record.
Yeah, and you started playing that immediately on the road.
I did.
And saw that. I mean, what was that like?
Well, we felt like with.
Do you remember the first place you played
it? I don't.
Okay.
I don't remember the first place we played it. But I mean, it may have been the Willie tour. I think we played it some earlier than that. I think. Yeah, I can't exactly remember, but I do remember feeling like the Souvenir record was like a lot of mid-tempo, sort of contemplative, and we just like, I wrote "Family" and we were like, man, this show needs a little more energy. Let's start playing that new song.
So interesting.
Yeah. So.
How a live show, I mean, how a record feels playing it live would inform, like, oh, hey, I want a moment like this.
Well, that's where "Into the World" really came from too.
Okay.
That was really informed by the "Ring the Bells" song, because live that song was so much fun.
Yeah.
I was like, I want another anthem,
Yeah.
And so I've been saving the lyric, "Don't eulogize on my behalf, I'm a long way from my epitaph." And I tried to write multiple songs with it, and they all kind of fell short. And so I took it to Sean McConnell, my friend, and we were writing it together, and he kind of came up with the big chorus melody,
That's great.
So then it all sort of fell into place. But.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so how many songs, I'm just curious, how many songs, because I don't actually know this, I saw, for me, from my perspective, it was really inspiring as a writer to see you sort of say, okay, I'm going to take a totally different approach to writing in general. Because before, like you said, it had been more concentrated, like, okay, I'm going to take this time and write this record.
Right.
And you were kind of like, okay, obviously this is your job, but like, I'm going to treat this more like schedule it out and invite other people into that. That has been really inspiring for me. And you said it earlier, but I'd love to hear you kind of like expound upon it. Is what was that creative process like for you? And what was the most energizing part? What was it energizing? Were there days where you felt depleted? And originally my question was, how many songs between a song like "Family," like, okay, we're going to start playing that right now. Like, I want to experience this with a live crowd. Between "Family" and then "See the World," and then "But I'll Never Forget the Way You Made Me Feel."
Well, yeah.
3 different questions.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious.
Yeah, you may have to reroute me here. But, I mean, total songs that I wrote for the record was probably somewhere close to 50. Now, a lot of those were not ever complete songs, there were like, oh, this is a verse chorus, I don't really like it, so I'm not going to like spend a lot of time on it. But I'll still save it and maybe cannibalize it for other things. Like, sometimes you write a song, like, it's not a very good song, but there's a couple of lines in there that I really like, and so I'll kind of like cannibalize those for lack of a better word, and use them in another song. So, 40 to 50-ish complete songs. And then I'd say there were probably, by the time I got to the recording, there were probably 20 to 22 of those that I was serious about. That kind of like, okay, this might be on the record. And there were probably 4 or 5 that were 100%.
You knew already.
Yeah. And those would be, sorry, cheating again. Songs that I knew 100% going to be on the record. Family, the first 4 for sure. Actually, the first 5. And then You Never Leave My Heart. But that one almost, like, I wrote that right before we went in the studio, so it was sort of a late edition. But I probably knew there were 4 or 5. Those first, on all the side A songs.
Love that.
So there were a lot of songs that, like, were extra, and then the other songs that, like in that period of time was when you and I wrote You and Me. And we knew that was going to be its own thing. Or I wrote Electricity, and then I wrote Love Anyway with Dave, and I thought that might be one for the record, and then it felt like it was a better duet song for you and I. So, and then some of Ring the Bells I'd already had written, and then sort of kind of did that pull from another song, cut and paste into the song that we wrote together. So it's all sort of kind of runs together, but so in those 50 songs, I mean, there's 10 of them here, and then there's 2 of parts of the Goodbye Road songs. I mean, there's probably 16 of those songs have seen the light of day.
It's crazy.
So I don't know, that's 30%.
Yeah.
25%.
It's a pretty good batting average.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
Love it, but it's interesting.
But there's
to me,
there's a lot that's not. I mean,
there's a lot that's not,
strikeouts.
and that's interesting to me. That's like a great concept to me too, and just seems important. Like, as a writer, to remember that not everything you write, like, you sort of, and like you were saying, you got to a lot of the stuff that you really wanted to keep towards the end of like a season of writing a lot of songs. So there's something about the practice of showing up.
That and the sort of thematically, I feel like the record had started to take shape, and so I knew what the record lacked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I knew what would fit, and so a song like, I really wanted to have Bittersweet on there, because I felt like the record needed, like, especially after you Never Leave My Heart, I felt like the record needed like a sort of intense, sort of mellow, contemplative moment.
Yeah.
To sort of wrap up some of these things. And then there's obviously a lot about family on the record. There's a song about our kids, there's a song about us, there's a song about my grandfather, there's a song about family in general, there's a song about my brother. So half the record is like very personal family stuff. And so I kind of knew that the record was going to have this very like personal life, association.
Yeah. So that's so funny, because that's literally my next question. You said the first couple of songs that you knew, like, okay, I'm going to make a record, family, See the World, and then But I'll Never Forget the Way You Make Me Feel, super personal songs. If you look at the last record, Souvenir, which I love so much, it is not quite as personal of a record. Yeah. So is there an intentionality in your writing, or as you set out to write this record, were you like, I want to be more personal, or did that just kind of come? I'm just curious if you were like, because you have a really interesting mind to me, you're very creative, but you also have like a very orderly way of thinking about life, business, music in general. And so I just wondered if that was an intentional choice, or if that's just sort of what came out.
No, it wasn't. It definitely was not intentional. I think the Souvenir record was like my artist record. It was like very cryptic, It was a little more political. It was a little more narrative driven. Songs like Postcard Memories. I took some chances with like the Morning song, like singing an overt song about sex, with our fan base, could be a little like, it was a risk, so I took some chances on that record that I'm really glad I did, but some of it wasn't necessarily received that well. I mean, like the Fight for Love song I thought was going to be this big anthem, and it just never really caught. Other songs like the Morning Song have, and it's like one of our most successful songs on streaming and all that stuff. We play it every night, so but because of that tour sort of feeling like a little weird for me, in the meningitis thing, it's like the first time I actually went to therapy. You obviously know that, but I think that caused me to be more introspective going into songwriting. And while Family is obviously a sort of, it's a universal song, it's not super particularly narrative about specific people in my family, but it's about just the experience of family from somebody who comes from a large one with a lot of beautiful chaos. I think that there was like I just wanted to be a little more open, and so in the co-writing I was sharing stuff going on in my life, sharing like, You Want What You Can't Have, where Lori went to her house in Boston, hung out with her and her husband and their kids, and we just got to talking in a room kind of like this, or studio, and talking about like, the comparative like beast in all of us, that sort of, and like the social media world that sort of feeds the beast, and wanted to write a song kind of like about that. And, it felt like personal, but it also felt sort of timeless and universal. So I really didn't have as much of a like, this is what I want, this is when we're going to release it, and this is what I want people to feel, as much as it was like, I don't know anymore. But I'm just going to be as honest honesty was sort of my like direction.
Your North Star.
Yeah, it was like, I'll just be really vulnerable and really honest on this record and let the chips fall.
What has that been like, having played these songs live? I originally wrote these questions a while ago. Forgot to hit send on the email. So we're just not getting around to it.
You didn't send it to me because I didn't.
No, I know you haven't seen these, but just when I sent them to Sam and Hannah to set this up, do you feel like there has been a difference in playing a record live? You're 2.5, 3 weeks into
4 weeks
Dragons tour.
It feels like the crowd is really with me in a new way that I haven't experienced in a long time, maybe ever. Especially specific songs like You Never Leave My Heart, Bittersweet, Family, End of the World. I mean, honestly, most of them. Dragons for sure. People are singing along. That's been special. But there's also like singing the song about Jay has been particularly difficult. I mean, it's been beautiful. Some nights I can totally get through it and not even think about it. But then there's other nights like Atlanta. I mean, I almost lost it. Like, I started thinking about the fact that he's never, like, he died when I was in high school, so he never experienced like going to a show. And I was,
one of your shows.
Yeah. I was thinking about that because my parents came to that show. They came to a lot of my shows. Yeah. All of a sudden I was like, oh man, stop thinking about that. I'd play the song, just keep singing, but I couldn't, So it's been an emotionally full tour, but it's been intense at times.
Yeah.
The Medicine was like that for me though. Mm-hmm. There's a song when it's all said and done. It was sort of about my sort of journey of faith and loss of faith and recovery of faith, and that was a really intense record to tour, just because of like the heaviness of a few songs on it. Ain't Nobody Got It Easy, So I'm not. It's not a feeling I'm unfamiliar with, but it's back with a vengeance. Yeah,
it's been that all over. That's beautiful. I like that you're saying that it's full. It feels like to me, having been I've seen 2 of the shows on the tour, the Ryman and then Knoxville, and it has been really fun, and I've felt deeply proud of you, because I feel like you're pouring out of yourself fully.
Yeah, I'm digging a deep well for sure.
You are.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Okay, so do you believe that a song can save you? That there are moments that you hear a song that it's the exact right moment that you needed to hear that song.
Like save your life?
maybe save your life, but just, I don't know.
Just save you from the moment.
Yeah, save you from a moment.
Yeah.
From feeling alone.
Absolutely.
And then,
yeah.
I guess, what songs have felt to you like a life raft? Like that you have, are there any specific songs that you've hung to? Because that's what I sense happening in the crowd a lot of nights. It's like people going, oh man.
Yeah, I have a lot of those songs. U2's Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horses saved me my senior year of high school. It was, part of it was Jay's death. Part of it was just being 17 and 18 and all the feelings that go along with that. I feel like Bon Iver's first record had that effect on me, where I don't even know what he's singing about half the time, but it's just so beautiful and so emotional. And, the melodies sort of dig very deep into the marrow of my being and the way that I sort of feel. It's like that record is how I feel. Mm-hmm. You and I have talked a lot about how, talking about colors, I'm very comfortable in, the gray and the rain and the dark. And it feels like home to me, and, too much sunshine. And I love the sun, but I mean, sort of metaphorically speaking, too much, everything's great is, sort of makes me feel like a liar, you know. But my music is sort of a tension of those two things, which is sort of interesting. But I've never, I think I credit a lot of that to you, actually. It's like the music I was making before you came along was definitely a lot darker. But then there's also Van Morrison, whose music is a little bit more in that sort of David Gray for me. I feel like Patty Griffin.
Yeah.
There's a lot of artists for me that there's specific songs too, like Sinead O'Connor when she covers Prince, Nothing Compares to You. That has not even been. It's not even my story, but it saves me in the moment.
Yeah.
It just feels like everything makes more sense.
Yeah.
When I hear a song like that, so that can also be true with James Brown. Just make you want to dance.
It's so good.
But there are a few songs. There are a lot of songs that I remember. I've had my mind changed by songs.
What?
Like Steve Earle's Ellis Unit 1 is a song about death row in Texas, and I heard the song, and it's written from the perspective of one of the guards, and I went and did all this research after listening to the song, because it just murdered me. I mean, just killed me. And I went and did all this research on death row, and all of a sudden, totally changed my mind about it. It was a typical sort of Southern conservative point of view. It's a deterrent, from crime and all stuff. So I started this research, and it's actually it's not a deterrent, factually, data-wise, and most of the people, and there's 10% of people on death row are possibly wrongfully imprisoned, and all this stuff. So music has done that for me as well. And then a record like Ghost of Tom Joad, where Springsteen puts sort of the skin on of all these other people, whether it's a murderer, like the song Nebraska, just harrowing song, or Sonora's Last Row, song about immigration. So I've had my mind changed a lot by music, and it's influenced my point of view on a lot of things. So all of that to me is part of the question of saving.
Yeah.
Those are all related.
100%.
Changing, saving. Yeah.
In that sort of mindset, could you describe what it was like? First of all, what made you decide to write a song about losing your brother? It had been probably, 15 years since you've written a song about him?
Yeah, and 20 since he died.
And 20 since he died. So was there anything, what made you sit down here on this yellow couch and...
Yeah, I was actually up in the kitchen. Well, it's a true story. I mean, that actually happened to me. I was walking home one day from... I wrote the song in January, I think, right after New Year's. And one particularly personal song on Souvenir that is New Year. We have this New Year's party every year with our friends, and one particular year, I was looking around the room and just seeing like all of our friends had this wonderful night, but also knowing like what it had been a really tough year in a lot of our friends' lives. And so it was right for New Year. That sort of was weighing on me, just that sentiment. And I walked to the post office, which is down the street from our house, and I go there 2 or 3 times a week to get our mail. And it was like 6 o'clock, which in January in Nashville is absolutely pitch black dark.
Yeah.
And cold and rainy. And I just, the grief with Jay is very, is a lot less often than it used to be. But when it comes, it's sort of just like, you know, like Ben Gibbard from Death Cab says, it stings like a violent wind. You know, and so I had a violent wind sort of sting me on the way home from the post office. And it's like it took me to that moment, 1999, which was the gathering right after the funeral. And I was like, it was like an out-of-body experience where I was like a ghost in the room. Sort of a Dickensian Christmas story kind of feel, where you're like watching your life happen.
Christmas Past, yeah.
Yeah, it goes to Christmas Past, which is, again, it was right after Christmas, so that makes sense. And I was just there and seeing it all go down, and just like, you know, and then all of a sudden I was jarred back to reality, and I'm standing on the sidewalk in 2019, January, and I'm, you know, it's always a benediction to be reminded that you're gone. You're a truth and a fiction, a vision and a song. It was like in that moment, it's like I was there at the party, and then boom, all of a sudden back to reality, and it's like it's a benediction. Like right now, I have to go. My heart and body has to go through it again. It has to go through the loss one more time, and it'll keep happening. And it's honestly kind of sweet. So. I don't know if it was that night or the next night. You were out somewhere and the kids were asleep, and I just decided like I'm gonna write that. I'm gonna write about what just happened, you know. And so I did.
Were you scared at all?
Sure.
Write it down. I don't know. That feels just like.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it was that the other songs had sort of freed me up to go there, and so I actually wasn't scared. But I do remember the next morning, you know, coincidentally, Paul sends me an email, our manager, and says like, "Hey, it's none of my business, and feel free to tell me to like kiss off here. But have you thought about, like, based on these songs, like maybe now's the time for you to write about your brother." And he's like, again, it's not my place to tell you what to write about, but I realized after releasing the song that a lot of people that know me pretty well didn't know that part of my story. And so I wasn't trying to ever hide it. It just, like, doesn't come up in conversation as you get older, you know? And so it's been sweet to get to share that, even with people that I know really well, that are close friends, that didn't know that part of me. So when we released that song, that was I think I told you that night, I just sat and read the Instagram stories all day, because like it was just a flood of people that were like, "Hey, this is my story too," or "I lost my dad to cancer," or "My grandfather died a month ago and I haven't been able to put it into words." And I mean, I think there were like 3,000 comments. Yeah. You know, and then there were another 500 or 600 people that sent direct messages or emails or letters, stories, and definitely the most sort of known I've ever felt as an artist was the day that song came out. Just like, okay, I did it, you know. It's like, it was really sweet. It's kind of a like, thanks, buddy.
Love you, brother.
Yeah.
Is there any story or connection that somebody's had with that song that stands out in your mind? And maybe that's not something that you would want to share.
I would say the neatest story I got, again, I'll tell it anonymously, but I got a message from a woman who said that she'd been a fan of our music for 12 years, and that she introduced her now husband to our music 5 years ago when they got married, and they've been married for 5 years, and he lost his dad in high school, and he's never talked about it with her. And he said they have a tradition that when that when we and a few others release music, a few of their favorite artists, they get in the car and drive and go have a listen, you know.
Cool tradition.
Yeah, cool tradition for sure. Except for he should have given him a little warning on that one. Yeah. So, she said they're driving, and all of a sudden he's like, let's get in the car. Drew released a new song today because it was in the middle of summer, and all of a sudden, like a minute in the song, he just pulls over and just starts weeping, and he starts telling her all these stories about his dad. And he's like, I'm not ready to do this, but I guess I'm ready now because the song. And she said the next day he called his dad's like 5 closest friends and was like wanting to get lunch with all of them to hear stories about his dad that he didn't know, you know. So that was easily my favorite story. But there's been like, I mean, they keep coming too.
So many.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a universal thing, especially at a certain age, that you've lost someone dear to you.
Yeah.
You know, I lost Jay when I was 17. I lost my grandfather when I was 23. I lost one of my best friends from high school to a drug overdose when I was 22. You know, so I'm like grief is not a stranger.
No, not at all. It is helpful. Yeah, I think it helps because it's something that is also so strange and so different for so many people, the way that they process loss and the way that they grieve. But it's been a really beautiful thing to watch you be really vulnerable and then to see sort of the wake of what telling your truth, you know, like the truth of what grief has been and looked like for you sometimes, to watch the wake of that ripple out across a crowd, across fans, across people who feel it. So I'm just proud of you.
Thanks.
And you don't want me to do that or say that probably, especially on here, but I am. Okay, so, I wanted to ask you what it was like playing that song live for the first time, and where were you?
I was at the Basement East doing the dress rehearsal, so thankfully it was a small crowd and a lot of friends.
Yeah.
But really, the Ryman was the first like show where I played it live.
What was that like?
It was awesome. Yeah, honestly, my family was all in the front row. Mom, Dad, your parents, my parents, Claire, Nathan, Sam, and I just gave it everything I had, and it just like it felt amazing.
There was a standing ovation.
Yeah, there was a standing ovation afterwards. I didn't really know how to respond to it because it's like mid-show. But.
Yeah. Oh man, I didn't know how to respond to that either. Okay, so you have a really remarkable mind, and because you are very much a creative, an artist, a storyteller. But you are also very much a businessman. Like you have this business side of your head. And so what is your favorite part about kind of linking arms with our managers and thinking about the business side of releasing a record?
Yeah.
But also like of songwriting. Is there any part of you that thinks about songs in a business way? Because I think that's a really different perspective than a lot of people.
That's interesting because I feel like,
I'll
get back to the release question, but if there's one part of my life and work that I think about with the least amount of business attention, it's songwriting.
Songwriting.
It's like too precious to me because I've had like, oh, you should write with all these country writers and y'all could write big hits, and I've tried it a couple times when I was younger and I was miserable. And then I've had people say, you could write this for TV and da-da-da, and I've done that a few times and never really enjoyed it that much. There's a couple exceptions. There's a guy in Oklahoma I like writing with. He just creates these amazing, like, sort of sonic landscapes, and I just get in there and sing, like, whatever I want.
Yeah.
But I don't, as it relates to my own songs, like, I don't. I mean, and it honestly, whenever people start to sort of say, well, you need this on your record because you don't have that yet, I'm like, I know what I want on my record. I know that it needs some up-tempo stuff. Not because that's good business, but because a record needs to be an emotional journey.
Yeah.
You know, like a show, it has to up and down and sort of around and surprises, and so.
Like a good story.
Yeah, and like, but I'll never get the way you make me feel as an example. Like, there's no chorus.
Yeah.
There's 2 A sections, a B section, an instrumental, another B section, and an A section. So it's not commercial.
Yes.
At all. But that's like my favorite artists. None of them made a lot of these like commercial choices, and so that's been an interesting thing because I do love the business side of it. But when it comes to songwriting, like business being like the lead is like, get off my lawn. Like, I have something I'd like to say in my writing, and don't tell me what will or won't make money.
Love it.
And part of the reason is because I've always trusted my instincts on my songwriting, and I've made a living at it.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah.
I don't people that do it that way, nothing against them, but that's not my path.
Yeah.
Not my journey.
Yeah.
And you know, like even with Abner and Amanda with Johnny Swim doing that thing, we didn't do that because we were like, oh man, we could like make some money. It was like, this is a terrible way to make money. It's like have 3 bands splitting the money on this recording, you know. But we had something to say because it was right after Charlottesville. We were all super pissed about, you know, what was going on and the response of certain people, especially as all people of faith. Like as we saw, like faith leaders respond and make excuses for abhorrent behavior.
Yeah.
You know, from all white supremacists and all this stuff, and so. You know, lead with your heart, and then have fun with the business side and the back end. Is sort of my.
I love it.
But I do love thinking creatively about releasing a record. My favorite part is honestly the numbers. Is like, okay, if like creating a budget and then figuring out if it goes well, how is it going to pay for itself and all this stuff. I enjoy it. I like the math. You know.
I love math too.
Yeah, totally. Big lover of math.
It's really good.
How old are you? You probably don't even know.
Well, that's not fair. I just had a birthday. Am I 37?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not fair. I just had a birthday. That makes it easier.
As it turns out.
That makes it easier because 1982 minus, you know.
Oh, that's worse. I just have to get close and then take a guess. I'm usually only a year off. Ahead or behind, it switches depending on the day.
I just feel like I'm.
You just feel.
Hell of a feel right now.
I feel 28 in my heart almost all the time. Maybe 31. Okay. Okay. I asked that specifically because I know that about you, but I think that's interesting. I love that there is still sort of this sacred space in the songwriting.
For sure.
Arena for you. And what would you say, like, if somebody's a songwriter, how would you describe your creative process of writing? Like when you sit down, so you took a little bit of a different approach, like, hey, on these days I'm going to write from these hours. What did that look like for you?
Sort of MO for songwriting, and it's that the enemy of songwriting is a blank page.
Love that.
So I collect words, actually, like.
Yeah, get it. This is exactly what I wanted.
So, like, I have this journal, and I collect words, and I'll write them down on the left-hand side. So, you know.
Read something.
Phrases. Middle of the road, ruthless, go wrong, fierce, the high ground, creating chaos, body of work.
Where are these coming from?
Well.
These random words.
So, either I just, usually from reading something, like we get the Sunday New York Times, and so I'll just open it up to some random section, like the travel section, or the arts section, or the world news section, and just start grabbing phrases, and I'll just make it a point to grab like 15 phrases.
It's amazing.
And then...
Drew, I live with you, and I didn't know that you did that.
Yeah.
Do you have your journal right there, or are you just kind of like logging?
It's not a journal. It's just words.
Sorry.
Oh,
I know that's not a journal, but you have a notebook right there where you're writing.
Yes. I don't do it all the time, but I do it a lot of times.
That's fun. Just words that jump out at you.
Yeah.
That you like, that are interesting.
That are interesting. Yeah, like uncommon language, where it winds and twists, the memory of smell, dangerous.
Oh, cool.
Under your nose, the rain stopped. I mean, yeah, like, but then you like take one. Let's say you take one. Let's say like, take a phrase. You know, preaching to the choir. And then you find words that rhyme with choir, wire, and fire, and then you know create like a little group of words and phrases, and then you can build a song out of that. You know, so that's one way.
That sounds like building a fire, starting with really
fun.
small sticks, and you're like, all right, stack these.
Like this is an older one. This is California from Souvenir. San Francisco, always tear in your eye. Where the wind blows, somehow colder in June. I've been thinking about you. Where the wind blows, somehow colder in June. I'm on. What did it say? Think about it. I don't even remember what
Think about day and night.
Every day and night. Yeah. So, you know, it's just like sort of collecting thoughts and phrases and putting them down on paper. But then also, I did the same thing with musical ideas that I save in my on my phone, voice memos. Mm-hmm. But you have like a bajillion of those. So yeah, if you have a thought that comes to you, just kind of just like save it and then go back and, you know, try to make something of it. So,
is there anything for you that is, you know, is going to spark creativity songwriting wise? Like,
yeah.
Okay, if I go for a walk or a drive, or if I listen to other music.
Yeah, for sure. If I go for a long drive by myself.
Yeah.
Like if I go to
interesting.
If I go to Memphis to go see my family and the kids are not in the car.
Yeah.
You're not in the car. That I will definitely come out of that drive with 3 or 4 song ideas.
Do you ever drive intentionally?
Just for that?
Yeah.
No, but after asking, maybe I should.
Me neither. I'm like, that's so interesting.
There's not a lot of time for just like, I'm gonna go drive for 3 hours.
Yeah, we got 3 kids.
Leave you with the kids.
Yeah.
So.
That's really interesting. We wrote a lot when we were touring together.
In the car.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's any? Have you ever thought about that? Like, what would be? Because I'm the same way. And on a plane, especially on a plane, which is so unfortunate because you have all these melody ideas and then you're trying to record them, and that's super awkward.
The person next to you is like, what is this person doing?
I have a lot of people ask me if I'm a songwriter on a plane. I'm like, I'm sorry. I just like lead with an apology. Like, I'm so sorry. Because I've been like.
I like to lie to people on the plane when they ask me if I'm a musician.
Yeah.
Nope.
You don't want to answer all the questions.
Accountant. Where are you going?
You are kind of an accountant.
To do some accounting.
Yeah, you do accounting for us.
Yeah.
Grateful for that. Do you think there's anything about being on the move, like in a car or moving, and melody and song? Is it?
Oh, for sure. It's just something about change, like new place, new.
Yeah.
And then you're also sort of anxious about where am I going? What am I doing there? Excited, anxious, somewhere in the mix.
Yeah. Okay. You are a very decisive person. Are we okay on time? Do you have any time frame for this?
I mean, we have to pick up our daughter in 25 minutes from school.
Oh my gosh! Okay. We need to wrap this up. I have like 20 more questions for you. This is really fun. We should do this again. I am curious because I came from a family of songwriters, and songwriting was very communal from a very young age for me. And you did not come from a family of songwriters, and songwriting, you are very certain of what you want to say. When I write, I kind of like put a lot out there and then kind of edit it back a lot of times. Like, nothing feels super solid for me. So when you write something, what is your mindset? Because you're very decisive, and I'm more like, oh, this could be good, or this, or this, or this, or this. And you have this ability, from my perspective, of like zeroing in on the exact image. How do you do that?
Well, partially it's just if I'm anything in my personality, it's impatient. So I don't like 20 options. So I'm immediately like, okay, let's narrow it down to the best 4. And so to me, that's an easy way of like trimming the fat. It's like, well, if I have 20, they can't all be good.
Yeah.
Narrow it down to 8.
Yeah.
And cut out of 8, narrow it down to. You get to a place where there's like, man, there's 2 or 3 options, and then you sit with both of them, whichever one sort of stands the test of time.
Does it help you to sing through it, like,
yeah,
as a complete work? By the time you're singing through a whole song, like getting a demo on your phone or whatever, do you feel like you've already pretty much nailed it down?
I don't know. Some songs are like that. Like, huh? Yeah, it depends on the song. Like, You Want What You Can't Have. Like with Lori, we were both pretty decisive, and then she liked to kind of like, okay, but let's try one extra. Like, let's give it one extra idea.
Cool.
You know.
But
it's really good, but let's like stretch it a little further.
Huh.
You know. And then I liked that. Instead of like choosing between two things, it was like, okay, we have something good, so we can like hold that line.
That's great.
You know.
That's great.
There's a line in that song that I changed after the fact. You Want What You Can't Have. Where are we? Spend your life looking for the greener grass. There was something. It was something about a photograph before. Can't tear down the tree, pull all the weeds. Spend your life looking at a photograph. Like the idea of like, you know.
Interesting.
But there's already a photograph metaphor on the record.
Cool.
Where is it? Into the World? No.
The real thing is a photograph.
Yeah, maybe. Sometimes the real thing is better than a photograph. And I didn't
want
want to have.
Pulled that out. I just.
Yeah, nice work. I didn't want to have two like very obvious photograph metaphors, and so I like wrote her and was like, hey, I'm gonna change it to, we got this. Can't tear down the tree. That's the tree of the Garden of Good, the tree of good and evil in the Garden of Eden. Since the Garden of Eden's been like that, can't tear down the tree or pull all the weeds in the overgrown Garden of Eden because it doesn't exist. Spend your life looking for the greener grass. I was like, oh, because we got this tree, weeds, grass. Let's, you know.
It's
what I mean?
sort of a colloquial.
But that song was way finished. But I made that.
You went back.
Change.
It's interesting. Yeah.
You know, and it actually was better.
Yeah.
So, that's a fun example of sort of how my brain works.
And that's.
Oh, there's actually also a photograph line in See the World. So I didn't want to have 3 of them.
Yeah.
When I see you in photographs, I can't believe how young you used to be. I mean, it's not a metaphor. It's just a lyric, but
yeah.
About a realistic lyric. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It's really interesting for me to hear you, to have somebody stretch you a little bit, and that's part of co-writing.
Yeah.
When you write with different people, they kind of come at songwriting.
Yeah. I have learned though that I'm not good at co-writing when I'm not like the art when the work is not for me.
Interesting.
So everybody that I wrote with in this, it was like we sat down knowing we were writing a song for this record.
For this record, yeah.
So it was easier than just like, oh, we're just gonna write a song for who knows, maybe.
Because you have a clear vision
person will cut it or whatever.
of sort of what you're wanting to.
Yeah, and
say.
Someone would say, well, that phrasing seems kind of weird, and I'm like, well, it feels great to me, and I'm be the one singing it, so.
Yeah.
I'm great with it, and that gives them freedom. Like, well, if you're great with it, then I'm great with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, what advice do you have for songwriters, especially young songwriters? I think meet a lot of people on the road and just in Nashville in general who are like doing this songwriting thing. Good advice.
I would say 2 things, and they're going to sound contradictory, but they're not. First, learn to write songs within the rules.
Great.
So write a really good song that's verse, chorus, that's rhyme is A, A, B, B, C, C, D, D, and the chorus is like, and nail it. And then go break all the rules in the next song. Like, so learn how to write within the rules of good phrasing, good rhyme scheme.
Yeah.
But then go try, like, instead of rhyming A, B, B, rhyme A internally to A, B, C internally to C, B.
Love it.
You know, so like try different things. Try to write a song. What were you going to say?
Well, when you write, do you think through the rhyme, sort of the rhyme scheme that intentionally?
Not on the front end.
Yeah, but as
it's developing.
Yeah.
Or like 2 of my favorite songs I've written would be What Would I Do Without You and But I'll Never Forget the Way You Make Me Feel. So those don't have choruses, but they have a hook line.
Yep.
Right? So they have their stanza songs, which Dylan was sort of the king of like.
Yeah.
You're gonna make me lonesome when you go. Da 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 da. And then he would end with every phrase, every stanza would end with, "But you're gonna make me lonesome when you go."
Yep.
So, what would I do without you is like that, you know. So find like 10 great songs from different genres and sort of dive into them.
Love it.
And figure out like, why do I love Ain't No Mountain High Enough so much? You know?
Love it.
And does it start with the verse? Does it start with the chorus? Does it start with like a weird B section? So I think there's a lot of, you know, learning the rules, but then breaking it, and then figuring out once you've done all that, like, what do I like?
Yeah.
You
What
know?
feels like.
What feels like me?
True
You know,
for you.
and then sort of like narrow into that and try to write like a couple of really good songs that feel really like you.
I love that. That's great advice.
Yeah, and then if you're a guitar player, try to write songs a cappella, you know, or like try to write, like I like to write with Nathan.
To get out of the...
To get out of guitar world, because he can write, you know, like Dave Barnes and I wrote this song that maybe released someday, but it's like this very R&B thing. I could never play because I don't know how to play keys.
Yeah.
But I sang the melody, like I want it to feel like this and kind of...
It's like a different set of like brushstrokes.
So trying to get your producer hat on.
Yeah.
Not just your songwriter hat on.
That's great.
In today's sort of musical landscape, I think is important.
Okay, so speaking of producers, this is a good. Okay, I'll come back to that question later. But speaking of producers, what was it like working with Casey and Cooley on these songs? And what's the most important thing that he brought to the table? Do you think for the record? He seems like
two things I think he really brought to the table. One was like a really clear vision of how to sort of modernize our sound. I really wanted to modernize our sound. Like I wanted us to stay true to who we are as like a band and performers. But I love U2 and Radiohead and like Bon Iver and all these records that sort of expand what just an instrument can do with the microphone.
Yeah.
You know, so the Good Light and Medicine and Souvenir were all very much like band records. Like we're playing in the room, we're recording, we may add a little bit of piano in this, but it's all like right there in front of you. You can hear it and you know what it is.
Yeah.
So I wanted him to sort of expand that sonic palette and to create more of a landscape that was a little less clear. You know, like this noises on the record, like Family. It's like, and then the drums come in, and so it's like, whoa, what's going on? This is cool. It's new. It's fresh. So. But also while creating a bridge, it's like it's a distorted reverse dulcimer piano sound.
And you don't like play that normally.
No.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
That's really, but it's really cool.
But you like make it on a keypad.
Yeah.
Synth thing. It's like so Ian can play it live. So, but then the second thing he brought, besides like modernizing the sound, was just a real like sort of clear sort of captain vision. And this was a record where I did not want to be in the room for all the decisions. Like we recorded everything. I wanted to be a part of all that, but also it's like, hey, you're a really great sort of mad scientist. Go do that and come back, and then we'll dive in. And we can always get rid of things or change things, and that definitely happened.
Yeah.
He let him go wild, and I'd be like, okay, that's really great. Now let's rein that in, but like still has
keep this. That's so
And he he was awesome. It was great. It started with Bittersweet because we wrote that.
Because you wrote that together,
Together, and he created that whole track, the whole song.
I know.
I love. Well, this has to go on the record, and you want to produce my record.
I love the vibe of a song that, like, the only way that I can describe it is it makes me want to rollerblade, and that's usually like a mid-tempo like.
Bittersweet makes you want to rollerblade. Song about like the end of your life.
No, it's not. No, that's not what made me want to rollerblade. I mean, like, production-wise, and the rhythm and the cadence of it. Yeah. And that is in that, like, rollerblading space. And that's always that's a really good space for me to get to use it. When I make a record, I'm like, okay, I need a couple of rollerblading.
To this?
Do I want to rollerblade?
I'll be honest, creatively, I've asked myself that question 0 times.
To each their own.
That's right.
You know?
For sure.
Okay, what makes you... Oh, do you have a favorite song on the record? We haven't even talked about Dragons yet. I feel like we should cover that, but we're running out of time. So we have to get a girl.
So...
Do you have a favorite song on the record?
Yes, two different things. Do I have a favorite song on the record? Yeah, Dragons would be my favorite song on the record.
Oh, perfect segue. I really didn't know that you were going to say that.
Yeah.
But what when you wrote Slay All the Dragons, I know that's a song about your grandfathers. You wrote that with Zach.
Yeah.
From Lumbello. When you sing that, does that take on slaying dragons, just that idea? It's something that people are connecting with.
Yeah. Well, that lyric was actually first. That was like where I kind of came to Zach. I was like, I got this idea about like swim in the ocean, New Year's Day, slay the dragons, stay on your way. That's sort of how it began.
Love it.
So we kind of wrote the chorus first, and we were like, man, this is a great chorus. Like, what's the vehicle for this chorus? You know, like.
Great.
And we started talking about our grandfathers and how like influential they were in our lives, and so we created this narrative about. It's actually kind of a bizarre narrative. It's like very outside the box for me. It's a ghost narrative about like having this conversation with your ghost of your grandfather around a campfire. But both of our grandfathers come from like war generations, and while my grandfather wouldn't have said those things exactly, that was certainly the spirit of his life.
Yeah.
He was kind of like the big fish guy. He was a doctor in Tokyo after the war, operated on Admiral Nagano, who ordered Pearl Harbor, and then he took his family to Africa and operated, did surgery for a year in the late 60s in Kenya, and went hunting on the weekends, and wrote books about duck hunting, and won the club championship at the golf course. And
he was a taxidermist.
He's a surgeon, like Baptist itinerant, volunteer preacher. He had 28 grandkids.
It's great.
So he's just like...
His name was Chubby.
Yeah, his name was Chubby. Like, you can't even make him up. He's like a character in a book. So, the spirit of him is definitely in that song. Mm. But it's also my, like, message to pass on.
Yeah.
Like, that's... Slay All the Dragons, Stay in Your Way is me, like, oh, that's like an invitation to our audience and to our kids and to myself of like, okay, like, I was just joking this morning, like, I am not a morning person.
You just realized it. How are you just now
realizing this,
out?
like, after, years and years of being married, but I just get, like that line, and what would I do without you? Sometimes I wake up with the sadness, other days it feels like madness. It's pretty true for me.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't love the mornings, and it's like another day of slaying dragon. Like, you gotta, like, kind of gear up.
Yeah.
You gotta find the gratitude, find the joy, find the, like, the work. And people see me on stage, and they see Moon River, and they see the Magnolia Record Club, and they see our family, and they're like, oh, this guy's got it all together. But, like, I literally wake up most days like, all right, let's do it again. Unless we're, like, on vacation somewhere easy and, awesome. But, like, that is not how I see life.
Yeah.
So that song is me preaching to myself.
It's interesting, because when you think of slaying dragons, you have this, like, I get like a wooden sword,
Right, like, you're not going to actually slay the dragon because he's a dragon and you're a kid, but somehow you do.
Somehow you do.
Like David Goliath.
Yeah, but the weapons, so to speak, that you just described were like gratitude and just
bravery.
Bravery. Yeah, I just think that's interesting. It's both and.
I've kind of been beating a dead horse for like 15 years. Like, my songs do sort of have the similar, like, take courage when the road is long. Like, like, slay the dragon. Like, come on, Drew, get off your ass, you can do it.
I guess if you sing it to yourself, that's what you need to hear. You can at least know that's going to be good for you, and then maybe that'll be good for somebody else. If it's good for somebody else,
too. Great. But it's like, I guess I've just been like, preaching to myself for 15 years.
That's good, babes. That's good. I'm glad you do it. I'm glad you end up writing songs. Okay, this is a really funny question to end on. But what makes you decide to write a song about me? And is it because I'm really nice to you on those days, or is it on the days that I'm not really nice to you?
Answer this question in front of you.
And you're like, I just need to hang on to the good stuff.
No. That's funny. But no, not at all. I mean, I can't answer this question in front of the camera.
Okay.
I mean, there's like...
It was kind of like a joke question.
I know, but there's like too much real in the question.
Yeah, there is.
I mean, on the one hand, it's like I started writing songs to convince you to date me.
And it worked.
Yeah, and now I write them out of gratitude for, like, you asked about, you, like, can a song save you? I'm not sure, but I know that, like, you've saved me a million times. And so the songs are me sort of, to quote myself, bearing witness to that.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, no one's ever asked me to write a song about you. I do it because I want to.
Well, I love them. And I love the one, well, you wrote two on this record about me, but I'll never forget the way you make me feel. It's been, it's so sweet. It feels like you handed down these really specific memories of, we were just in Knoxville and I was talking to the kids about, I brought the kids to
Gus's.
see you to Gus's Good Times Deli, and so you've woven into the fabric of a song these really specific.
Did you show them where we went night swimming at your apartment?
I didn't, but I did show them where we, like the street that we met on at the house.
Yeah.
The first time that we met.
Oh,
so,
that's fun. You didn't tell me that you did that.
So it just, thanks for writing what's been true for us. It has been a really beautiful thing that we've gotten to do music and then just like do life alongside you.
Yeah.
At the risk of being too cheesy. I'm like, I've said I'm proud of you and like, thank you for writing songs about me, but yeah.
This was a great interview for me. I feel like I'm, no critic interview.
Yeah, there's zero critical questions. Anything that you want to cover that I didn't cover?
No, that was fun. We should do this again.
Love you.
Love you too.
That's not usually said at the end of interviews too.
I do it at the end of every
Thanks
podcast.
for your time.
At the end of every podcast I say.
Thanks for your time.
There you go.